Hey guys, it's KJ from the Scariest Movie Ever channel on YouTube. Do you ever get that feeling that something's just not right with the world? Do you ever wonder if maybe we're actually living in some kind of a computer hologram? A computer program? Do you ever get the feeling that we are actually living in a movie? Not just any movie, I'm talking the scariest sci-fi horror film you can imagine. But it's real. So I've noticed a lot of really interesting patterns and synchronicities where our reality is mirroring entertainment, films, TV shows. So I'm going to show you multiple examples of that in this video. And some of what we're going to be delving into has to do with social engineering and predictive programming. This is the poster for a new movie called Us and Them. And this is a classic example of a time where a film is actually mirroring things happening in our reality. I also feel that it's a classic example of social engineering and even predictive programming. The movie's about a guy from the wrong side of the tracks who decides to fight back against the, quote, 1%. I've covered the subject of a Civil War 2.0 here on the channel, and many other people have seen this coming as well. And this movie, Us and Them, fits perfectly into that narrative. But how is it predictive programming and social engineering, and what's the difference? So there's countless examples of social engineering. I can give you one right here. This is Jaden Smith. This is the actor Will Smith's son. And here's a kid that has been used for a few years now to push the idea of gender fluidity. That your gender isn't the gender that you were born with, it's whatever you identify with. And we see these themes played out time and time again in all forms of entertainment. It's all about confusion. So in this context, social engineering refers to psychological manipulation of people into performing specific actions. And here's another example of social engineering. There's so many commercials out there that have men being effeminate, men wearing dresses. And once again, this is all a part of that agenda, the social engineering agenda in reference to gender fluidity. As for predictive programming, one of the most classic examples of that came to us before the 9/11 attacks. Many people are looking back now in different movies and TV shows, and they're seeing tons and tons and tons of signs and a lot of symbolism that referenced the 9/11 attacks, sometimes years before they actually occurred. So here's just another example of predictive programming. This comes to us from the movie Knowing. It starred Nicolas Cage, and there's a scene in the film where he's watching the news, and on the news there happens to be an oil rig in the Gulf of Mexico that catches fire. There's explosions and all kinds of chaos. And of course, this film came out before the actual oil rig blew up in the Gulf of Mexico, causing the BP oil spill. So even more interesting, and staying connected with the BP oil spill, there is an Illuminati card for the oil spill. Now, this is from the Illuminati card game that came out, I believe, in 1993, maybe 95. And if you're not familiar with the card game, you should check it out, because many of the cards in this game have actually come to pass. They actually predicted future events. So then there's the question, are they actually putting this stuff in place in these different forms of media because they know it's coming, or is all of this stuff coming through spiritually? And I personally think it's a mix of both. And before we continue with the video, this is just kind of a side note. I've been watching a TV series called Designated Survivor. It's very interesting in this one as well. I'm wondering if this is predictive programming. The whole idea is about a guy that was neither right nor left. He kind of fell somewhere in the middle. He wasn't really a big political guy, but he winds up becoming the president of the United States. And just last night they had their newest episode, and this is a spoiler alert unless you're watching the show or not, but somebody actually tried to assassinate the president here. They actually shot him, and so far it looks like he's survived now. So I do find it interesting that the basic premise of the show is mirroring our reality. Because the narrative is that Trump was an outsider to politics, wasn't necessarily right or necessarily left. In many ways he's being portrayed as a man of the people, or a populist leader. just like the president from Designated Survivor. And of course we see that narrative playing out constantly in our media nowadays as well. Ever since Trump was elected, and even before he was elected, it seems like there's stories every other day about people talking about assassinating him. So yes, a lot of this so-called entertainment does not have your best interest at heart. Typically it's trying to program you. This is why they call it programs. You're going to watch your program on TV. We are being programmed by a lot of this media. Dividing of the races. Also, now we have a lot of the movies and TV shows coming out that are pushing the social justice warrior narrative. They are compartmentalizing us. They want to separate us all into small little groups and then have us all turn on each other. So we've seen plenty of programming with this idea of the rich versus the poor, us versus them. So much of our entertainment media over the last few years has been fueling this idea of anarchy, fueling this idea of nihilism, fueling this idea of rising up, that it should be no surprise now that all around the world, what do we have? Violent riots breaking out. This is what happens to the masses after years and years of predictive programming, social engineering. Once again, we find reality mirroring entertainment, or entertainment mirroring reality. It's almost as if we're living in a movie. And of course, this also reminds me of another example of how reality and entertainment are mirroring each other, and that comes with the Purge films. In the Purge films, one day a year in America, everyone's basically free to do whatever they want. There's no law, there's no police on the streets, so it's just chaos. So of course, throughout the years, as these movies have been coming out, more and more we're finding headlines like this. Everything you need to know about Ireland's real-life purge night. Real-life purge in Brazil. Mass robberies, rapes, and homicides as military police go on strike. Or even the purge in real life. Alarming report in Kentucky, Louisville police respond to purge threats. Many scientists, philosophers, and business leaders believe that there is a 20 to 50% probability that humans are already living in a computer-simulated virtual world. In April 2016, researchers gathered at the American Museum of Natural History to debate this notion. The argument approaching photorealist simulations that millions of people can simultaneously participate in. It is conceivable that with advancements in artificial intelligence, virtual reality, and computing power, members of future civilizations could have decided to run a simulation of their ancestors. Bank of America sent a note to its clients saying that there's a 20 to 50% chance that we're living in the Matrix, meaning that the world we experience as real is actually just a simulation. So I think it's very interesting that the Bank of America came out with that statement, especially considering the fact that you can find these heavily occultic murals. So if you haven't looked into this subject, please do. Many people have picked these occult symbols apart. It's just interesting you'd find these in a bank, and many of these occult symbols seem to be predicting future events, a coming New World Order, a one-world system. Even with one of the most popular TV series on TV at the moment, and that's The Walking Dead, we find this mirroring our reality. The scourge of drugs on Britain's streets, shocking footage shows people turned into The Walking Dead after taking spice, and, quote, zombies slumped in town center. The signs are all around us, sometimes even literally. So while The Walking Dead plays, while we have all these new movies and TV shows coming out about zombies, again, mirroring in our real life, we have this. We have headlines like strange cannibalistic attacks increasing around the world. Now here's another example that I've covered in some videos in the past. It's the massive amount of movies and TV shows that are out there that are all about demonic possession. But there is certainly no shortage of these kinds of images and these kinds of ideas in our modern entertainment. So now we're getting headlines like this. U.S. exorcists explain huge increase in demand for the right. And headlines like this. Worldwide demonic possession on the rise. Church prepares for spiritual warfare. The reports of demonic possession around the world have gotten so crazy we actually have scientists now working with exorcists. As a psychiatrist, I diagnose mental illness. Also, I help spot demonic possession. Something else that's become quite clear over the years is there's a lot of movies that come out that are targeted for the teen audience. And all of these movies have to do with the future. And in the future of these films, it's the New World Order. So I have no doubt that part of the programming in these films is programming the youth for a New World Order. The Maze Runner is one example of this. Another one of these New World Order themed films for kids is called The Giver. Divergent is another example of one of these New World Order themed films, targeted towards the teens. And I'm certainly not the only one that sees the connection between our reality and these particular films. This is from an article right here on the chickspy.com. Divergent is an eerily realistic depiction of the real world. Well, of course it is. All of these movies are. It's part of the programming for the kids, preparing them for a one world order system. And of course, at the top of the pyramid of these kinds of films, you'll find The Hunger Games. The Hunger Games is not only filled with these dystopian ideas, this New World Order, it's also filled with a lot of Illuminati symbolism, if you will, or satanic symbolism. And once again, I'm not the only person who sees these synchronicities. This is an article right here from SheKnows.com, 7 moments in the Hunger Games that mirror real life. It also comes out in more subtle ways sometimes. You may remember this image right here from the Hunger Games. The character in the dress is named Effie Trinket. So Lady Gaga is one of those so-called Illuminati artists that's constantly pushing forth deeper mysteries, occult mysteries, and lots of symbolism through her performances and her music videos. Not long ago she sang the national anthem, and it was interesting because so many people made this connection between her and Effie Trinket, they actually made a meme about it. So those of you familiar with the Terminator films will recognize the name Skynet. In the movies, Skynet is the corporation that's behind all the technology with the Terminators. So it turns out that the NSA actually has a Skynet program. Or you may remember the movie Minority Report with Tom Cruise. This movie took place in the future. And in the future is all about pre-crime. They were able to figure out who the criminals were before they committed their crimes. And of course that is no longer just the stuff of movies. Pre-crime is here. Get ready for real-life Minority Report. The TV series Westworld is another example. In this TV series, there are androids that look just like human beings, and a few of the main characters are actually prostitutes. So these are essentially sex robots. And of course, once again, this is mirroring reality. Meet Harmony, the first sex robot to offer an emotional connection with her human lover, and she's on sale very soon. Here's another movie that came out not long ago called Another Earth, where scientists find another Earth that completely and totally mirrors our planet, even with the people on the planet. So everybody on Earth now has a doppelganger on this new Earth. So no surprise, we have this story that came out just less than a year ago. Scientists may have just discovered another Earth. There could be water on a rocky planet found orbiting a sun near ours. The next step is finding out who, if anyone, is home. Once again, you see how it's all mirroring. So these are just some of the examples I wanted to share with you. And it does raise the question, have you ever felt that we're living in a fabricated reality? Have you ever felt that we're actually living in some kind of a movie? Predictive programming, social engineering, even spiritual synchronicities, it's all there. When we look around at our world and when we compare it to a lot of the entertainment that we're fed and we're programmed with over so many years, it's not hard to see the connections there. So I'll leave you with that, and I want to thank you once again for watching the video. Until next time, take care of yourselves out there, and I'll talk to you real soon.